My name is Jessica. I'm 21, and I live in Indianapolis. Last Friday night, I decided to stop by McDonald's after a long day of classes. It was late, around 10 p.m., and I was starving, so I grabbed my usual, a cheeseburger and fries, and sat at a table near the window. There weren't many people inside, just a few other customers minding their own business. I was scrolling through my phone, half eating, half distracted, when something odd caught my eye. On the edge of my table, behind the napkin holder, there was a small device sticking out. It was about the size of a thumb drive, tucked just out of sight. At first, I thought maybe it was part of the napkin holder or something a customer left behind. But then I looked closer and my stomach sank. It was a camera. A tiny, hidden camera. The lens was angled perfectly to capture whoever sat at the table. Me. My heart started racing. Why was there a camera here? I quickly glanced around, wondering if someone was watching me at that very moment. The thought made my skin crawl. I felt exposed, like I wasn't alone even though I couldn't see anyone watching. I immediately grabbed the camera and walked up to the counter, where the manager, a guy probably in his 40s, was standing. I showed him the device, explaining what I found. His face went pale, and he took the situation seriously right away. "This is bad," he said, and quickly called the police. As I waited, the fear settled deeper into me. I kept looking around, scanning the faces of the other customers. Could it be one of them? Was someone sitting here, watching me the entire time? The thought sent chills down my spine. I tried to stay calm, but my mind was racing with horrible possibilities. The police arrived in what felt like an eternity, but was probably only about 15 minutes. They took the camera and asked me a few questions. That's when they told me something that made my heart stop. This wasn't the first camera they'd found. Apparently, there had been multiple reports across the city of hidden cameras being discovered in fast food restaurants. They all seemed to be placed strategically, catching unsuspecting customers like me. As they examined the device, I couldn't help but wonder how long it had been there and how much footage it had captured. The officer mentioned that the cameras were often linked to someone's phone or computer, and that whoever was behind it was likely watching the footage in real time. That thought made my stomach turn. After the police finished up, I left the McDonald's feeling rattled. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. My phone buzzed just as I reached my car. It was a text from an unknown number. I froze. The message was a photo of me sitting at that very table, taken from the same angle the camera had been pointing. I couldn't breathe. My hands shook as I stared at the image. Whoever had taken that picture had been watching me, maybe still was. I frantically looked around the parking lot, scanning every car, every shadow, but I didn't see anyone. I got in my car and locked the doors, heart racing. I drove home as fast as I could, checking my mirrors constantly, terrified that someone was following me. I don't know who sent that photo or how long they had been watching, but the worst part, I still don't know if they stopped. My name is Mia. I'm 24, and I work the morning shift at a McDonald's in a small town just outside of St. Louis. It's not the most exciting job, but it's steady, and I've gotten to know some of the regulars pretty well. One of them is an older man named Carl. He's in his late 70s, always quiet, and usually sits by the window with his coffee. He comes in almost every day around 8 a.m., like clockwork. At least he used to. It's been over a week now, and I haven't seen Carl. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe he was sick or visiting family. But then, last Tuesday, something strange happened. 2 police officers came into the restaurant while I was on shift. I overheard them talking to my manager, mentioning Carl's name. Apparently, Carl had been missing for over a week, and no one had seen him since he was last at McDonald's. That sent a chill down my spine. Carl's last known whereabouts were here, in our parking lot. I couldn't shake the weird feeling that something was wrong. Later that day, I was working near the register when I overheard my manager and the cops discussing CCTV footage. My heart started racing. I knew we had cameras all over the place, one at the front, one inside the restaurant, and another facing the parking lot. I wasn't sure why, but I suddenly felt this overwhelming urge to check the footage for myself. After my shift, I asked my manager if I could take a look at the recordings from the day Carl went missing. He hesitated at first, but eventually agreed. Together, we pulled up the footage from last week. Sure enough, around 8 a.m., there was Carl. He walked in, just like he always did, heading straight to his usual seat by the window. But here's where things got strange. I watched the entire tape, expecting to see Carl leave the restaurant, but he didn't. I scrubbed through the footage over and over, checking every second. Carl never walked out. He came in, sat down, and then nothing. It was like he vanished into thin air. I showed the footage to my manager, and he went pale. "This isn't right," he whispered, shaking his head. "We should have seen him leave." He called the police back immediately. When the police arrived, they were just as confused as we were. They combed through every angle of the footage, but Carl was nowhere to be seen after entering the building. They even checked the parking lot cameras, but it was the same story. Carl walked in, but never walked out. It didn't make sense. People don't just disappear. As the days passed, I couldn't stop thinking about it. I had this gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach, like something was being hidden. The fact that Carl had vanished right under our noses, it made me question everything. Then I noticed something else. One of my coworkers, Mark, had been acting strange ever since Carl's disappearance came up. He was nervous, always avoiding eye contact, and he kept leaving work early. I couldn't help but wonder if he knew more than he was letting on. I still don't know what happened to Carl. The police said there were no leads, no signs of him anywhere else in town. But I can't shake the feeling that someone, maybe even someone I work with, knows the truth. My name's Ethan. I'm 25, and I've been working as the closing manager at a McDonald's in a small town near Dayton, Ohio, for about a year now. Most nights are routine: cleaning up, making sure everything's locked down, and sending the team home. But one night last month, something happened that still makes me uneasy whenever I think about it. It was a Tuesday and we were closing up around 11:30 p.m. The night shift was finishing up the usual duties, and I was in the back, checking inventory. The drive-thru had been closed for a while, and the lights were already off. That's when I noticed something strange. Through the cameras, I saw a car pull up to the drive-thru window. It wasn't unusual for someone to come by after hours, thinking we were still open. Normally, I'd just ignore it, but this guy wasn't moving. He sat there, his car idling, staring straight at the window with this blank expression on his face. At first, I figured he just hadn't realized we were closed, so I decided to go out and explain. I walked out the side door and headed toward the drive-thru, but as I got closer, something about the man gave me a weird vibe. He looked strange. His eyes were wide and empty, and he didn't blink once while staring right at me. The guy didn't seem confused or lost. He looked off. I tried to keep my cool, waving to get his attention. "Sorry, man, we're closed for the night," I said. He didn't react at first, just kept staring at me, like he was sizing me up. Then he leaned out of his window and said, "I just need to come in." That's when the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. There was something wrong with him. The way he said it wasn't like a question or a mistake. It was like a demand. I forced a smile and backed away, muttering, "Sorry, man, can't let you in." Then I quickly turned and headed back inside, trying to keep calm. Once I got inside, I locked the door and told my crew to stay quiet. Something about the guy didn't sit right with me. Minutes passed, and the man's car was still there, just sitting outside the drive-thru. I could feel the tension building in the room as the other employees noticed my unease. Then we heard it, a loud pounding from the back door. I froze. The back door was supposed to be locked, but the pounding got louder and more desperate. Someone was trying to get in. My heart started racing, and I grabbed my phone to call the police. But before I could dial, the pounding stopped. Silence. I didn't dare move for what felt like hours, though it was probably just minutes. I checked the cameras again, and the car was gone. The man had vanished into the night, leaving us all on edge. The next morning, I was still shaken. As I was getting ready for my next shift, I scrolled through the local news and found a report about a man wanted for an armed robbery at a gas station just a few miles away. The description matched him perfectly. The same car, the same blank stare. It hit me like a brick. That man could have been armed. He could have been planning to rob us or worse. I still work the closing shift, but now every noise, every car I see after hours puts me on edge. I can't shake the feeling that if I hadn't locked the door in time, I wouldn't be here telling this story.